Hi, everybody, it's Ms.Salazar, and welcome to Phonics. So, today we're going to be reviewing two prefixes that we talked about last week. Those are going to be re and un, but we are also going to be talking about new prefixes, over and pre. Now, today is February 8th. 2021. And because we are still in the month of February, this is known as Black History Month. So, Black History Month is when you think and when you remember all of the struggles and the accomplishments that African Americans went through. Now, the thing is that back in the day, a long time ago, African Americans had almost no rights. Like, they had almost no rights, and they had to fight for that. And it's important that we remember that. So, this guy right here, his name is Martin Luther King. He was the leader of a movement that helped African Americans have equal rights. So, again, back in the day, African Americans, they had almost no rights. They were treated unequally, basically. And he saw that and he was like, wait a second. No, stop. This is unacceptable and we have to fight for this, right? And he fought for that. He fought for African Americans. And thousands of people joined him because thousands of people also saw that and they also wanted to make that unequal treatment stop. They wanted to have rights. Remember that. Well, I'm going to show you guys. Back in the day, African Americans, they were treated horribly by white people. Horribly. So let's see. Do you see these pictures? Notice what it says. So African Americans, they were called colored people. So a long time ago, years ago, they were called colored people because their skin tone was darker. Now, African Americans, they couldn't wash their clothes in places where white people washed their clothes. So when I say white people, I'm talking about people that are light skinned. When I say colored people, I'm talking about people who have a darker skin tone. And African Americans back in the day, they were also called colored people. And they did things differently. So African Americans and white people, they had their separate laundries. For example, you see this picture where it says, "We wash for white people only." This is an actual sign. Like, this existed. I am not making this up. So, white people and colored people, they used different laundry rooms. They did not mix. You see this other example, it says theater. So, a theater is kind of like the movies, right? Like a movie theater. And this movie theater is specifically for colored people only. So that means that let's take, for example, this theater, right? So this theater, only colored people could go in. White people were not allowed to go in. And then in the laundries, right, in the laundry room, in this case, only white people were allowed to wash their clothes here. Colored people were not allowed to do that. So the thing is that African Americans and white people, they had their own separate places, their own separate buildings. African Americans, they could not eat in the same places as white people. They lived in separate neighborhoods. Right now, you can live in any neighborhood you want. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. But back in the day, it did matter. They couldn't mix. So they lived in separate neighborhoods and they even went to different schools, right? Everything was separated. And not only was everything separated, African Americans were bullied every single day. And it doesn't matter your age. You could be 43, you could be 50 years old. It doesn't matter your age. People were extremely mean to them. They would hit them. They would say mean things to them. They would rob them. They did a lot of bad things. And so Martin Luther King, this guy, he saw that and he was like, wait a second, no, stop. Like, this can't go on. And so he stood up to that and he fought for African American rights. And that's why he is so important. Okay, so you see this quote? It says, "To ignore evil is to become accomplice to it. That's what he said. MLK stands for Martin Luther King. So that's what he said. And what this means is that when you see that something is wrong, when you see that something is it's just unjust, something that's not fair, it's wrong, it's evil, then you have to stand up to it. You have to do something about it, because if you don't, then you're just an accomplice to the crime. You're basically helping the evil, you're basically helping the crime, you're not doing anything to stop it. And he says, and you have to stand up to it. And that's why he is so important, because he fought for African American rights, and eventually African Americans did have rights. And then all of those buildings where laundry rooms were only for white people, and only this laundry room was only for colored people, all of that went away, all of it. But it took a lot of sacrifice, and it took a lot of years for that to happen. Okay, so that was a little Black History Month, lesson. We will be talking more about this in the coming days. But for now, we are going to be going into the prefixes. So last week we talked about two of them, re, which means again, and un, which means not. So when I'm talking about re, example, rewrite, to write again. Example, uninvited, not invited. If you are uninvited, that means that you are not invited. Un means not. And let's see. Okay, so you see these two are new prefixes, over and pre. So over means too much. Example, overwork, to work too much. And then pre, it means before. Example, premix, before you mix. So pre means before, and over means too much. Now we have four sentences, and we have to use the prefix re and un. So we have to read the sentence, and then we have to figure out which one do we have to use. So you guys don't have to write this in your notebook. We are going to be discussing this in class, and then I will be typing the correct prefix based on your answers. But you don't have to write this. So let's see. Number one, it says the ghost blank appears every night. So if I want to say appears again, what prefix would I use? And then I would write it here in the blank space. Number two, please blank do the homework. So if I want to say do again, if I want to say do again, what prefix would I use? Number three, African Americans had blank equal treatment. If I want to say not equal, what prefix would I use? Number four, stepping on dog poop is blank lucky. If I want to say not lucky, what prefix would I use? And then for over and pre, it's exactly the same thing. I have four sentences, and then I have to figure out what prefix I need to use. So number one, it is unhealthy to blank eat. If I want to say eat too much, what prefix would I use? Number two, she blank paid her bill. If I want to say paid too much, what prefix would I use? And then I would write it here in the blank space. Again, you guys don't have to write this. We're going to be discussing this in class, but you don't have to write it. Number three, you can blank order the movie. So if I want to say before the movie is available to everybody, that you can have it first, what prefix would I use before it is available? And then number four, microwave foods are blank made meals. So if I want to say that it's already made, if I want to say that microwave foods are basically foods that are already made, you don't really have to cook them. So what prefix would I use for something that's already made? Now, this is your assignment. Again, we will be discussing this in class, and you do need a copy of this. It's only 2 pages, and we are going to be working with the four prefixes on re, which we talked about last week, and then the new ones over and pre. Now, you have until the 13th to send this. You're going to send this to LMS in PDF, and it is worth 10 points. So if you guys have any questions, let me know.